And there's two lots of thoughts that you have, the thoughts you know about and the thoughts you don't. And it's not necessarily the thoughts you know about that mess up your life. It's the thoughts you don't know about, the thoughts that are below the surface of conscious thought. It can often be those thoughts, those, like you talked about, programming from your youth. Didn't have an example of a good relationship, this is programming. So physiology does trump psychology. There's science to back it up. Research for yourself, discover for yourself, or even practice for yourself. Practice it. Stand in a power pose. Actually, let's set up. Everyone up. Let's go. Let's do it. Stand in a power pose. So what we can do is either like this, big smile on the face. Okay, what I want you to do is just in your mind, just your imagination, think about a time when you really wanted something. Oh, you wanted it more than anything in the world. What's this guy thinking about? Okay, you wanted her more than it. Okay, you wanted it more than anything in the world, okay? Can you think about a time when you wanted something and you had to have it? You just had to have it. You've never wanted anything?
Yeah, but I can't think of anything right now. So easy doing research. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
What about a good feed? What about love? Some people are driven by food, like even sugar or whatever. That craving, that urge. What can you think about? So go ahead and think about that. Big smile on the face, and I want you to think about that. And we're going to hold that pose for a couple of minutes. Well, let's go. Chest up. Shoulders back. Big smile on the face. Something you really wanted. You had to have it. You just had to have it.
Donuts.
Yeah, even if it's donuts. Even if it's donuts. So keep holding it. Okay, that's about 40 seconds. That's it, keep going. Keep thinking about the thing you want. And I want you to ramp it up. I want you to make it like double. Just double it. Double that feeling of desire for that thing you wanted. You have to have it. You're searching. You're searching. Keep looking, you'll find it.
I've already got it.
Oh, you've already got it. Well, just imagine the time when you wanted it, when you didn't have it. Can you go do that? Yeah, you can do that. Okay, that thing that you wanted, more than anything in the world. That's the way. That's why I do this for another 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Just imagine now you want it even more. You want it even more. You can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it. That's the one. Good job. All right, very good. So while you're standing there, who feels differently than they did before? You're sitting down, now you're standing up. Who feels differently? Yeah? Excellent. Who feels amazingly differently? You've got a really good imagination. See, NLP teaches us the better your imagination is and the better your physiology is. If you use both together, you get more outstanding results. And this comes down to practice. The more you practice this, the better you get. It's like anything in life. The more you ride a bike, the better you get. The more you drive a car, the better you get. It goes from unconscious incompetence to suddenly unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, and then we go to conscious competence, and then finally unconscious competence. So eventually you don't have to think about it. You just do it naturally because you've done it so many times. It becomes natural and easy. This is NLP 101. This is how it works. This is moving or changing your physiology to affect your psychology or affect the feelings in your body, because emotions affect the way you think. Emotions affect the way you think. All right, take a seat. Take a seat. So there we go. All right, let's go back to Dennis Waitley. So he said there are 3 resistors. Okay, what are they? Let's have a look. So number 1 resistor, 2 and 3. So number 1 resistor is fear. So fear. There's a little acronym for fear. It's false evidence appearing real. There are real fears out there. We're afraid of shark-infested waters. We shouldn't go swimming when there's sharks or crocodiles. That's a real fear. We shouldn't walk in front of the car or the bus. That's a real fear. But there are other fears that aren't real, like public speaking, standing in front of a group. Some people are very afraid of that. In fact, what they've said is that's the second greatest fear. It's even greater than death. People would rather die than public speak. Did you know that? They'd rather die. Right, so fear is a big one. So people are afraid. And so fear can stop us from having the relationship we desire. If we're afraid, we won't go because we're afraid of what? Rejection. We're afraid of being hurt. We're afraid that somebody won't understand us. And so fear can keep us stuck, keep us from doing that or meeting that person we want to meet. The second one is laziness. And mind you, this can work for every area of your life. In relationships, it could be laziness. It could be that you get home from work, you're that exhausted, that tired. What happens to the energy in the relationship? It's low. You're just so tired, you're worn out, you've just been working 12 hours. And now, what, you've got to come home and work on your relationship? No. I come home to rest, to relax. I don't come home to work on my relationship. And some people think that way. And they come home and they go, oh, here's my wife. So I've given the best of my life to all these people out there who I don't even care about. Maybe they're paying me, so I look, pay attention. Look, smile, nod, all that. And then I come home to my wife and I'm too tired to do anything. I'm too tired to invest in that relationship. And there's three ways we can spend our time. We can sell our time, we can waste our time, or we can invest our time. And if you want a happy marriage or successful marriage, we've got to deal with this laziness. And we've got to make sure that we can move our energy up as we need to. It's all yours. You control your state. You control your state of mind and emotion. And we do it first physiologically, but also with the focus of our mind. So the second one, laziness. And the third one is even more destructive than those two. It's the worst of the three. And it is this: limited self-belief. As motivational speakers travel around the world, what they've found is that two things come up. Two things that tend to show up here in this part, in this limited self-belief. And what they are is, I'm not enough. And if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. So I'm not enough, and if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. Who's ever said that to themselves before? I'm not enough. Who's ever felt that? And the rest of you haven't got your hands up, you're lying. It's true. Because we've all gone through it. Every single one of us have felt we are not enough. And if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. And so this is some of the reason why so many people work so hard. How many high achievers we got here? People that work really hard. People that put everything into things. Got some high achievers here? Yeah? What about high achievers with holding your hand up? Acknowledging your high achievers. Okay. So for a high achiever, yeah, some of the reason why we do that is to try and make up for this feeling of perhaps inadequacy in ourselves. That if I work harder, if I'm more diligent, if I'm this, if I'm that, I'll be enough. And perhaps if I'm enough, I'll be loved. Does that make sense? This is absolutely true. This is not from me. This is from people far smarter than I am. So 1, 2, 3, limited self-belief. Is that interesting?
So with number one,
yes.
If someone has a deficiency in themselves, or what they see as a deficiency,
okay.
Just for example, they have a speech impediment,
yep.
Then you would probably have a fairly severe fear of standing up and attempting to speak in front of people. But if you analyse that further, it's probably that you worry about what people will think of you.
Yeah.
In other words, if you didn't give stuff
yes.
when people saw that quoted deficiency in you,
yep.
then it wouldn't worry you as much.
So is it a fear or is it a limited self-belief?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a fear as much as it would be here.
I've got what I perceive to be a deficiency,
yep.
but I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up and do that anyway.
Great.
I don't care if what people think of me.
That also comes with age and maturity.
I'm not saying I've ever achieved it. I'm just
yes.
saying that that's something that is worth thinking about. It's sort of worry about what people think about you if you've got a deficiency.
Yeah, you're right. So it could be fear, could be limited self-belief, or a combination of the two. But you're right. So is there a way for that person to public speak if they really wanted to? Is there a way for them to do it? Think of the King's Speech. Have we seen that movie, The King's Speech? Yeah, if you've seen that movie, you'll notice that in that movie they go through this process where even though he he stutters with all these words. When he swears, he's not stuttering. Now why? Because when you swear, you're using your primal brain, using a different part of your brain. And with that brain, in that brain, he doesn't care about what people think. Because it's the primitive brain. So we've got the lizard brain. You know, we've got 3 brains, not just one. Everyone aware of that? We've got the neocortex, we've got the mammalian brain, we've also got the hind brain, or they call it the reptilian complex. So what we're accessing when we swear is the reptilian complex. And so he was able to swear without stuttering. There's no stuttering when you're swearing.
Or singing.
Or singing, yeah. So singing, so that was able to help him then get the confidence up that he needed. And was he ever a great speaker? And did he ever get to the point where he loved speaking? Probably not. He probably always had this fear. Fear of judgment, fear of doing it wrong, fear of stumbling over your words, fear of any number of things. So yeah, fear can stop people in their tracks. But is this interesting? That these limitations, now how could they relate to your relationship? Tell me, fear, how would that show up in a relationship?
Letting your partner down?
Letting your partner down, yeah. You're afraid you'll let her down. Yeah, you're afraid. Anyone else?
Fear of being rejected.
Fear of being rejected, that's a big one. And this doesn't matter if it's right at the beginning, halfway through, or right at the end. It's always, I mean, that can always be there, is the fear of rejection.
Or being rejected again.
Or being rejected again, yeah. And so after you've been through a separation or a divorce, what's in the forefront of your mind? The pain of the rejection. And it's right there. It's right there. And so when you go and you meet someone and something reminds you of your ex-partner, guess what happens?
You get rejected.
Those feelings come up and you kind of send out this signal, reject me, or you can do. Yeah. Yeah, and so it's a difficult one, and that's a challenge. Anyone else? Fear. How does fear show up in relationships?
What about fear of abandonment?
Fear of abandonment. Yep.
Not being good enough.
Not being good enough. Okay, it comes back to those two. If I'm not good enough, I won't be loved. Yeah, it really does, and it's fundamental for all of us. What about the second one? Laziness. Where does laziness show up in relationships?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It can do, especially if you're not getting your needs met. Is that right? You see, a lot of people go into a relationship to meet their needs. I mean, if anyone had any needs to meet, I'd just stay single, wouldn't I? Rather than going to a relationship with the right attitude, rather than going to a relationship realising that it's not my needs I'm looking after. If you're going to take on the responsibility of being in a relationship, you better step up. And you better realise that their needs are your needs. You better realise that there's a deeper level of relationship than just going in and saying, I want my needs met. That's where we win the game. That's where we start changing it in our mind. And this is a lot harder for a 20-year-old than it is for a man who's a bit older. The changes can happen with this over time. Great if you can do this when you're young. If you can get it when you're young. But oftentimes, and sometimes it takes a bit of rejection, a bit of hurt, and a bit of straightening out until we get it. Bit of a sledgehammer to the face, right? Then we finally wake up. Where does limited self-belief show up in relationships? Everywhere? Everywhere? In the bedroom? I'm not a good lover? Yeah. Okay, yeah, in the bedroom, absolutely. Absolutely. When are you most open and vulnerable? In the bedroom. Is it true? That's when, I mean, you're naked, right? That's when you're bearing all. Okay? And it's a very vulnerable spot. And if you're rejected at that point, that's like, wow. Harsh. Okay, limited self-belief. Yeah. Am I good enough? And it does show up. And when you're getting feedback that you're not good enough all the time, what does it do to your confidence? It just plummets. Okay, we're getting feedback we're not good enough. Yeah. It's a tough one. Anyone else? Limited self-belief shows up?
I don't know how this fits in. Probably fits in a couple of things, but I think some people are conflict averse. So instead of like speaking to their partner about what they need, they both need,
Yes.
they would prefer to not have conflict because they're afraid that conflict will cause them to not love you or not,
So you become a
they're afraid of
martyr.
conflict, so they
Yeah.
then, does that make sense?
Yeah, everyone know the martyr philosophy, where you become a martyr, you just sort of put yourself out there and you become I've done so much for you. And you're trying to do everything that your partner wants, but not getting...
In the hopes that they'll do what you want.
In the hopes that they'll do...
Mind readers,
Correct.
so
Correct, but not giving them any guidance, just expectation.
and then you start to resent them because they're not doing it.
Absolutely, and then it doesn't come back when it's not reciprocated. All this kindness and generosity is not reciprocated. Then we've got
It's still
problems.
theoretical because I haven't really had much.
But what you're saying is spot on. What you're saying is absolutely spot on. All right, so these are some of the resistors that can get in the way of us having the relationship that we desire. We can have fear, laziness, and limited self-belief. Now, if we work hard on ourselves, and the best thing happened to me was I got divorced after 6 years of marriage in 2004, and it was a really tough time for me. And I felt those feelings of rejection and hurt. There was 3 children involved, so I had children there. It was a very difficult time, and I went into a bit of a circumstantial depression. And I recognised it was that, and I didn't go and seek medication or anything, but I was depressed. Because I just had this situation occur in my life. And had I gone and seen a doctor, they probably would have medicated me. Oh, this will help you. But I decided not to do that. I decided to know I'll ride the storm out. During that time, I decided that I needed to do a lot of work on myself. I decided that I needed to find out what was wrong and correct it. And who's felt that way? You've gone through a failure and then you decide, well, now it's time to do the work. Yeah. Okay, and that's often what we do. So often some of our failures can be our greatest successes because it's through the failure that we get the motivation to change. It's often through the failure that we're spurred forward in our life. And that's what I found with me, is that I'm more motivated when I fail than when I succeed. So when I do well, sometimes I can sort of coast along. But when I do really badly, I've got to lift my game. I've got to push myself even harder. And that's how it was in my relationship. And so I went into a self-discovery mode, and I started really researching everything that I could on relationships and how I could create a great relationship next time. As I was doing my rounds one day in my work, my career, I went to a house of a woman to take a report, and as I walked into her home, I saw that there was a whole room covered in books, and so she's obviously well read. And as I spoke with her at the table, she explained to me that unless I changed sufficiently, I would continue to attract the same type of person into my life. And I really listened carefully to what she said. Unless you change sufficiently, you will continue to attract the same person into your life. And as I got back into the dating game, guess what I noticed? That I was attracting what?
The same type of woman.
The same type. And I was thinking, what is wrong with this? I didn't mean to. I wasn't doing this consciously. I was doing this unconsciously. It just seemed to happen that my personality and who I was attracting that same type of person into my life. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I change then? It became almost an impossible mission to change. Who's felt that before? That it's like you try to change, somebody gives you some good advice, and you just can't get it. And so I actually I'll tell part of the story now. There's a story of the 3 Rebeccas. And there was 3 Rebeccas that came along, and one of them, after an initial conversation, a second conversation, she started telling me about her therapist. And so I decided that, maybe I'll steer clear of that one. I didn't know a lot about therapy at the time, but I thought, if you've got a therapist, maybe there's something wrong. So I decided, I'll back away from that. because I didn't want anything crazy to go on. In fact, when my last relationship ended, there was a lot of crazy stuff. There was clinical depression was involved, and there was some other things that showed up in her life as far as mental illness goes, and that sort of meant, you know, don't go anywhere near mental illness. That was the first thing. The second Rebecca came along, and she was very attractive. She was blonde, she was beautiful, and she was exactly what I pictured in a woman. Exactly who I pictured. And then there was another Rebecca, a brunette, who was a little bit overweight, but really beautiful woman. Beautiful personality, wonderful in every way. But really, my attraction was for the blonde. I was a sucker for blondes, right? That was my attraction. And I kept remembering what this woman said: unless you change sufficiently, you continue to attract the same type of person into your life. So I started dating the brunette because I decided I need to do something differently. But I tell you what, I was torn. I was in a situation where I was being drawn this way, where the eyes, some men can see better than they think. Is that true? That was me. Okay, I could see better than I could think. After having a conversation with Rebecca, who's now my wife, I explained to her this dilemma. Can you believe that? So I explained to her that I was more attracted to this other woman than her. And
Sure.
I did. I had this conversation with her. And you know what she loved about it? She loved my openness and honesty. I didn't hold back. I wanted to, inside me, I was thinking, I don't want to offend her. I don't want to hurt her. How's she going to feel about me if I tell her I'm more attracted to this woman, but I'll settle for you? You know, it doesn't sound real good, does it? Anyway, I told her this. No, when you say it like that, yeah. She said this to me. You know what she said to me? And she played her cards beautifully. She said, if you go down that road, it's like the Matrix, right? She says, if you go down that road, you know where it's going to lead. And you, in 6 years' time, will be in the exact same position you're currently in. And oh my goodness, it was like I said, a sledgehammer. That really hit me hard. And I went against that natural inclination to go for what I was lusting after. And I realised that's what it was lust. It wasn't love. It was desire. It was lust. And I decided to go against that and go and start to develop what real love is. And so Rebecca and I married. And so I chose Rebecca, and I tell you what, it was the best choice. 12 years, 13 years on, I'm a happy man. Because I chose right. I didn't choose with my eyes. I didn't choose with my heart, just my heart, my lust or the testosterone in my body. I chose with my mind, and I chose with my heart, the heart of love. And we know that lust is, you could say that it's a precursor to all relationships, but lust can also get in the way of true love. Lust can also be something that clouds us and blinds us. And once that judgment's clouded, we can go down the wrong path. Selection is so important. And so with the three Rebeccas, I had this selection opportunity. The odds were stacked in my favour. That's pretty good, isn't it? 3 opportunities, 3 choices. So I felt pretty lucky as a guy, right? But I did feel, my honest feeling was that the odds were stacked in my favour as a male, because there were so many beautiful women out there. That was my honest feeling. That was how I approached the dating game, was that the odds are stacked in my favour. I had this confidence about myself that there was so much opportunity out there. I really felt that. I really felt like there were so many women looking for a good man.